start the recording, and I will. Cleo just said it's the cast of Buffy. Oh, it is the cast of Buffy. I love that. Oh, my daughter would so want that. My youngest daughter still wears a key from Julie Blomicky's Slide to Unlock that she sent with the book. And so my other daughter would love that background, Cleo. You've got my envy. Welcome to our Thursday book launch. My name is Malika Albrecht, and I'm the founding editor of Redheaded, Stepchild. I am so excited. I'm not going to be able to talk much. I first do want to acknowledge Collin, Kelley, and Karen Head, the co-editors of this anthology, and also to say a huge thank you to Julie, because without her, I would not have had this opportunity to have you all here and to celebrate the anthology. Mother Mary Comes to Me, a pop culture anthology. I do want to also give a quick shout out because Collin Kelley was featured on Wednesday Night Poetry. Kai Hagen curates, and I have to say it's a fabulous reading. If you haven't seen that or been a part of Wednesday Night Poetry, I really encourage you to go to Facebook and go to Kai's page or Wednesday Night Poetry. It's just such an amazing just chorus of voices. And like tonight, Wednesday Night Poetry has been kind of my touchstone for sanity. So thank you all for being a part of that. I'm so excited to hear you read, and I am going to turn it over to Collin.
Well, Malika, thank you so much for having us. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for having us on. This is likely going to be our last reading from the anthology for a little while anyway. So I am so glad that we have a great audience here, and we have so many readers who are involved tonight. That's just fantastic. So very happy. So yes, I'm here with Karen Head, who my lovely and delicious co-editor. We did the majority of the editing of this book and putting it together socially distanced and remotely. And so it is possible. And I think it turned out really beautifully. Madville did a beautiful job with the publishing of the book and the editing, and we're so easy to work with. So yeah, so Karen and I have known each other for, how many years have we known each other, Karen?
17.
About 17 years. And she came to hear me. She heard me read at this coffee house that no longer exists. It burned down, called Java Monkey, which was our go-to place here in Atlanta every Sunday night to read. And we became very fast friends. And then she heard me read the poem of mine that's in the anthology, which I'll read here in a couple minutes. And we just knew we were going to be good friends. And then she wrote a merry poem, and then we were like, you know, this ought to be a book, an anthology. And so about 7 or 8 years ago, we decided to try to get it together, but no one wanted it. We sent it out to, I don't even know how many presses we sent it to, and no one would touch it. I think they were a little put off by the pop culture aspect and what that might mean. And then when Notre Dame caught fire and burned down in 2019, we thought this might be another opportunity here. So, and I'm going to let Karen pick it up from there and go from there.
Right. So I was sitting in my office, and we were sort of, Collin and I were on the phone together as we were watching the spire fall at Notre Dame. And we're both very strongly connected to Paris and love the city. But we started talking about, we were sort of watching the news that day, and as people were almost instantaneously pledging a lot of money to rebuild. And so I said to Collin, I said, I think that we should try the book again. And I think that we want to see if we can find a publisher who can get behind a social justice mission as well. I'd like to be able to donate all of the money that we make. I mean, it's poetry. We're not, it's not going to be billions of euros, but and donate it, find some of the Black churches that have been burned down, and donate the money in that way. And so we got back with some of the people who had sent us materials the first time, and and sent out a proposal. And I guess Madville was maybe the third place that we sent it. And Kim she was instantaneous. I mean, she loved the mission. She loved the idea. She loved the purpose of doing it, both from the donation standpoint and just from the thematic part of it. And so, kudos to her and to the press for taking it on and doing that. And yeah, it's been a real labor of love, and we had not planned to do it in the middle of a pandemic, but in some ways, Mary appears where she needs to be, right? We all know that. And she's been appearing all through this pandemic by way of this book. And so we're delighted that you're all here this evening. And we even have a couple of other folks who are with us tonight. Our cover artist, who is actually my husband, but has become sort of the poet's photographer here in Atlanta. And he's going to talk a little bit about the cover art. And then the idea of writing about Mary is nothing new. And so Richard Utz is here to join us to tell us a little bit about that history. And he was gracious enough to do a translation of a much older Mary poem that starts the collection. So those are two additional highlights tonight, in addition to just these amazing poems. And there are video links to the other readings. We would encourage you to check those out. We've tried to get as many people to read. One good thing about the pandemic is that we've been able to have people together to read who wouldn't have been able to read together by way of this technology. So that's been a kind of gift as well. Even having, in the last reading, we had Ivy Alvarez, who joined us all the way from New Zealand, and it was already tomorrow. She wouldn't give us the lottery number. She didn't send us the lottery numbers for tomorrow, but so we just, thanks again for being here, and we'll get on with the reading.
Right. So before we actually let's bring Collin on and have him put up the photo and talk a little bit about the cover photo. He gave us several selections to choose from, but I think we knew instantly that this was going to be our cover photo, because it's just such an arresting image, and he really is a brilliant photographer. And so, Collin, tell us about the photo.
Well, that's very kind. So you want me to go now? Okay, fine.
Go ahead.
Before I show you the cover art, and also it's actually a crop from a bigger photograph, and it's interesting to see what else is in the photograph that's not on the cover. Karen said to me, Collin and I are doing this book on Mother Mary and pop art, in contemporary culture, and do you have any Mary photos? And this wasn't an idle question, because I kind of collect Mary photos for a kind of bizarre reason. In the early 1990s, a local woman in the Atlanta area in Conyers, where there's a monastery, reported having visions of the Virgin Mary. And this fascinated me, because I was actually doing a documentary project at the time on people who believed in the supernatural, and this just seemed like a natural extension of that, but it sort of totally took over. And I went to her farm where this visitation occurred, and where thousands of people would show up pretty much every other month maybe. It always happened on the 13th of the month, which is a kind of a tradition with Fatima. That vision occurred on the 13th of a month. And between 1990, I was looking at the negatives actually just the other day, from 1993 to 1997. It was a story for another time, how the whole event kind of peaked and dwindled and became sort of politicized actually among the followers, like became factions and so on. But this is Nancy Fowler, and it's a small illustration of the crowd. And at its height, it was really like Woodstock. You would have media helicopters flying overhead, taking shots for the nightly news, tens of thousands of people on this woman's farm. It was incredible. I don't know if I can, so just examples of all of the kind of iconography that was set up on this farm and the one adjacent where you know, the visitation happened. Just want to make sure. You know, people, and I'm not a Catholic, and I didn't go there to basically do a safari shoot of, you know, people doing this. I actually was quite moved by the involvement of people. Very often I was asked if I was a priest because this occasion was actually frowned upon by the church, of course, and so a lot of priests were rumored to go there incognito in civilian dress. And no, I'm not a priest, I'm just documenting this. But as you can see, you know, there were lots of offerings for, you know, lost children and sad family cases. So, you know, this is the kind of thing that I did, and I really enjoyed working with people and got to know some of them relatively well for a short period of time. And I just kept finding photographs of Mary everywhere. I mean, it's amazingly luscious imagery. I was at a professional conference in Ireland in 1999 in Limerick, and I came across this photograph, which became the cover. Collin and Karen immediately fell in love with this, and we must use this photograph. And this is actually from, this is the store of basically a thrift store window. And it's a Mary statue, and you can see the reflections in the window. And it was just taken with a $5 plastic camera, and it's just, as you can see, the quality is very low, and it kind of, this grittiness and bleariness lends itself to the dreamlike quality of a vision, I think. But what was really going on was this. So there were all these statues and puppets and things in the window. So that's really what was there. And it just goes to show you that the Mother Mary, I mean, she will find you in all kinds of situations. I'll leave you with one other, because people actually, when I was at Conyers, would ask me, have I seen any visions? You know, people would share their stories. I called the whole project Pilgrims and Visionaries. And I would say, no, not really. But it's not true, because one day I was relaxing in our house in Kirkwood, where we used to live, and Mother Mary came to me. And she'll be reading later. Anyway, that's what I have to show you, the photography. We come back to live view, and the background, the Zoom background, is actually in that's in I was going to say Fatima, not Fatima, that's in Lourdes in France, where we visited a few years ago.
Well, thank you, Collin. That's great, and thank you so much for this photo, because it really just is. It's a fantastic photo, and yeah, really good. Someone said really good crop, and yeah, definitely a good crop to make our cover. So let's jump back. So I'll read. Oh, let's get Richard in, because I would like Richard to kind of kick this off with our reading, and then Karen, you and I can come back and read ours. Richard, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, hello, Richard. So, Karen, do you want to introduce Richard and talk a little bit about what transpired here?
So Richard is my boss. Always invite your boss to be part of your book if you're in the Academy. No, Richard is a great lover of poetry, and I stumbled across an older poem that I knew that he would be able to give some context to and translate. Actually, Richard's wife, Francoise, is my French translator. She translates my work into French, and so there's a great tradition in their house of translating poetry. It's one of the nice things I think about the Academy is that you can almost always find a specialist for something, and it doesn't matter what it is or how out there it might seem. So, Richard, you can talk a little bit. It's a fairly famous poem. But we needed to get a clean translation as well so that we could publish. The poem, of course, is not copyrighted, but various people's translations are. So he was gracious enough to give us a new one that we could publish.
All right. Well, thanks, Karen, for that great intro. So I can tell you now, which I didn't tell you at the time, that I was absolutely shocked when you asked me to translate this poem, because it is absolutely untranslatable. What I mean by that is it's been translated by so many fantastic people, that I really asked myself, is there anything that I can actually do, that has not been done already? This poem is in every single anthology of Middle English medieval lyrics. So you can find it there. Its great advantage is it's so simple. It is so simple that it is so hard to translate, because most of the words in this poem still exist today. And some mean the exact same thing that they meant in the late Middle Ages. So this is a 15th century version. We don't know how old the poem really is. But this is what's hard about translating this poem, because everybody who reads it kind of already understands it. Okay. What I'll do really quickly is say this. A 15th century poem about Mary strikes us as something, of course, people in the Middle Ages, they all loved Mother Mary and the Virgin Mary, but it's actually not that simple. The tradition of Mariology in the Middle Ages actually has a moment in time when, around the 12th century, when people in the church realized that there are no more women coming into the convents and the nunneries. And that is troubling, but the men had only themselves to blame, because all of the saints and Jesus Christ and God were depicted as male, right? So there was not a lot of identification, apparently around 1200 into 1250. And so the idea was, how are we going to change that? And obviously, Christ's mother, was an opportunity. Why? Because she was born without original sin, so she didn't have all the negative associations that all the other. And so at around 1200, there's a big Mary boom, which then extends into the late Middle Ages, and that's what gave us, this poem about Mary and many others. So just for the heck of it, because it is so simple and because you can understand it without looking at the Middle English version, I would like to read the Middle English version to you.
Oh, yeah.
So, I sing of a maiden that is makeless, king of all kings, to her son she chase. He come also still, there his mother was, as dew in April that falleth on the grass. He come also still to his mother's boor, as dew in April that falleth on the floor. He come also still, there his mother lie, as dew in April that falleth on the spray. Mother and maiden was never known but she. Well, my sweet laddie, goddess mother be. So I think you probably got about 98% of that without, taking a look at the original text. And now I think you understand why it's so hard to translate this, because again, the words are all still there. And I tried to do something that hadn't done before. I think at least in the final stanza. So I sing of a maiden, matchless is she, king of kings she chose for her son to be. He came as still where his mother was, as dew in April that descends on the grass. He came as still to his mother's bower, as dew in April that descends on the flower. He came as still where his mother lay, as dew in April that descends on May. Mother and maiden, there's never been another. May such a lady be God's mother.
Thank you, Richard.
Right.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. And really, I was so glad when Karen mentioned, that she really wanted to get you to do this. I thought it was a brilliant idea, because it really just kind of set the tone and kind of gave some context to what we were trying to do and how long people have been writing poetry about Mary. So I just thought it was fantastic. So let's jump in. I'm going to read the one that kind of started this whole thing. And then Karen's going to read hers. And then we're just going to jump into the contributors. I'm not going to introduce everybody. I'm going to read everybody's name. And then when it's your turn to read, just come on and say your name and read your poem and say a word or two. And we will get going on this. So this is the poem. It's called The Virgin Mary Appears in a Highway Underpass. And I don't remember what year I wrote it in, but right after, this is a true story. This was a true appearance. And I wrote this poem shortly thereafter. The Virgin Mary appears in a highway underpass. Mary pops up in the strangest places, usually as a window stain or sandwich. But yesterday, she dripped down the wall of a Chicago underpass, brought the faithful running with candles and offerings, blocked traffic. I saw the pictures, couldn't see her face, saw a giant gaping vagina instead. Just failed my Rorschach test, going to hell for sure. If this is Mary, she sure gets around, recasting herself as a Holly Golightly, popping up where you least expect her, causing trouble for the locals. But why would she choose to appear in condensation, burnt toast, or ditch water runoff? Some will say it's proof that she still dwells here, runs like an undercurrent, manifests in the mundane. I say, cut the parlor tricks, Mary. If you want a little respect, come flaming out of the sky on a thundercloud, ride it like a magic carpet over middle America, speak in a voice like Diana Rigg or Emma Thompson, command attention, instead of this sleight of hand, a stain to be cleaned with soap and water, so easily erased. So, Karen, over to you.
All right. So my poem also comes from an actual experience that happened when I went to visit Lord a few years ago, and stopped off to have some tea and met an old woman who outside of the tea palace. I can't even find, I don't even know my own page number. Isn't that terrible?
62. 62.
There it is. And so I just I think the rest of the poem kind of speaks for itself. Other than my French is dreadful, so apologies to those of you who actually speak the language with the beauty that it deserves. Encountering Mary outside Lord. On the road leaving Lord near the shuttered discotheque My Sweet Lord stands another ubiquitous statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Our Lady of the Cornstalks, I'm calling her. Nothing here is an apparition. This is Mary in the everyday, the ordinary, the kind of woman who might stop you in the parking lot as you're leaving the local salon d'été, crumbs of a croissant still on your lips, to say that your tunic est très jolie, that les couleurs sont bons pour vous. Then, realizing you don't speak much French, gently runs her thumb down the middle of your body like a surgeon about to do a heart bypass, outlines your figure with both hands, a bit wider than you are, and says something about les boutons as she scissors with her fingers. For a moment, she stares intently into your eyes, waits for some kind of recognition. Not knowing what to say or how to say it, you can only nod. She waves as she drives away in her Citroën. This is a woman who knows everything about alteration. All right.
All right. Well, we're gonna jump in here. So let me introduce you to the poets who are going to be reading tonight. This is the order they're going to be reading in. And then I'm going to jump out of the way, and they're going to get on with reading their contribution to the anthology. So we're going to be hearing tonight from Janet Lowry, Cassandra Windwalker, John Manuel, Pablo Miguel Martinez, Julie E. Blomeke, David Matthew Barnes, Jen Martelli, Brent Calderwood, Tyson West, Rupert Fike, Trevor Healy, Cleo Creech, Jill Crammond, Tom Daly, and we will close with Tina Kelley. So I'm going to turn it over to Janet.
Geez, I already, anyway, thank you to everyone that organized this. So I won't go through that again, sorry. This is Statue of Mary based on, like everybody else's stuff that happened, the way it was. My mother's shoulders stiffened when I said I wanted to spend my allowance at the Catholic gift shop on Shenango Street, where nestled in glass cases, crystal rosaries, silver medals, crosses, and scapulars were displayed. Shelves full of statuary lined up in anti-military rows, the cherubs, seraphs, archangels, and saints that populate the highest heavens. Baby Jesus in a creche, the infant of Prague, the Sacred Heart, Jesus with cross hoisted over one shoulder, Jesus on the cross, the ascended Lord in glory, then the mother load, 3 rows of statues depicting the Blessed Mother Mary, Our Lady of Fatima, Our Lady of Lourdes, Our Lady of Guadalupe, always in blue robes over white gowns or in white robes over blue. I selected a small choir of angels for my dresser, an infant of Prague in satin robes, and a tall statue of Mary for a shelf above my bed. Her bare foot crushed the neck of a snake winding around our planet. Mary could defeat evil. That's what called to me. A presence so pure, her foot crushed the serpent I'd met in the figures of my mother and her pediatrician brother. They meant me harm, that much I knew. My father was too sick with drink to see how much danger I was in at their hands poking around my young body. Where could I go for help except the divine? The first sight each morning, the last each night, before I said my prayers, was that statue of Mary looking down at me with such love and affection. It drew tears of relief from my child's eyes. Her love enveloped me. When I went to college, my mother sold for a dime the statue that saved my soul. Thank you.
I'm Cassandra Windwalker, and my poem is called We Are All Mary. And I wrote this poem because we are all the suffering mother. Joseph was spared the loss that Mary was forced to face. And even if we don't suffer that loss on behalf of our own children, we suffer it for our friends' children, for strangers' children. So we are all Mary. It's hard to watch the mother at the manger and not grieve for her. Hard to carry joy past that open door of horror and not linger in its frame, transfixed by cruelty and its regular, common price. But every mother knows that door is there, and life forbids we bar its way, block its passage in any way. We do our best to keep those little feet far from that awful room, but the price of creation is steep, and every breath is resignation to that cost. A laughing burst of speed, a heedless glance behind, and the precious one may stumble out of reach. Some willfully charge into that darkness, and others still are snatched without a warning by cold miasmic winds that gust unchecked through that hideous, watchful, gaping door. Somewhere, there are mothers untouched by that cold wind. Somewhere there are children whose feet never venture near that threshold, but I have forgotten them all. And in swaddling blankets and the blood of birth, I see only grave clothes and the stains of inhumanity. Thank you. I think John is next.
Thank you. That was a lovely reading. The background image that I'm hiding is a painting by Léon Cognet, done in 1824, called in English, the Scene of the Massacre of the Innocents. And so this poem has a twist on some, I don't know, imaginative nonfiction, perhaps. Nah, it's probably more imaginative fiction. But anyway, here it is. It's called Sons. Soldiers storm the innocent homes, pound down the doors. Their armor clacks, swords shear when drawn, slicing every little boy in two, some still clutching his mother's breast. Full moon flashes red on blades. Leather sandals stomp the baby's wails. A king has ladled blood. A mother runs with babe in arms, seeks refuge house to house in alleys, rooftop gardens, crouches with her son, ensconced in corners and stone wall shadows. She stops to breathe another prayer, kneels with him, but doesn't see the rusted spikes. She falls, her face to dirt. His outstretched arms break the fall, hands and feet bruise. She muffles cries with prayer and drops of myrrh on his lips. Another mother hiding there with a child of her own helps them up. The black and blue fading darkness into solstice light, sun hanging low in winter sky. The mothers cradle their sons in the transparent stillness, pressing them to their bosoms, to their own hearts, listening. Mary guards her son, who would also never say a word, even now, while the young Barabbas sleeps. But a silent mother's tongue is sometimes louder than death. Thanks.
Thank you, John. I think I'm up next. This poem, based on the Virgin of Guadalupe, a story that I knew growing up, even though the French nuns who taught me and my sister in Catholic school were always quick to tell us about Lourdes and Fatima. And it was this story that always was at home with my grandmothers and my parents, and she's been with me ever since. Adios, O Virgen de Guadalupe. A wave, a wail, an endless loop of hymn, of delirium. We laud her, this brown-skinned girl, nimble, balanced on a slip of moon, headstrong as only mujercitas her age can be. Urge her back to her celestial jefe. Go back, where you're safe, chula. What are you doing here among the nopales and the men who'll take ugly advantage? Your heavenly pops will fret. Why can't you be more like that immaculate girl who dresses in creamy white and sky blue? He'll cry. No seas tan exigente, asking ese indio humilde to build you a shrine, as if picking out a shiny trinket, demanding a sign of his devotion, as if conjuring roses in winter were nothing, just like that. Don't be quick to part your cloak for any way, dropping a field of stars on which, on a field of stars on which to lie for your heated entwining. You are always with us, Morenita, in spiky sun rays, your outline in handprints when your raza is pressed against walls, against our wills. Adios, mi reina. Go find what you seek en el otro lado. Here we will wait and hope and pray. But for now, adios, adios. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pablo. And thank you, Malika, for hosting all of us. And I just love the love story that has kind of happened with this anthology with Collin and Karen. And it was great to hear from Collin too about the cover. Mother Mary Comes to Me is a pandemic anthology. So, and I was also, my book came out this year in the pandemic too. So it was a double pandemic release. So I'm going to be reading my poem that's in Slide to Unlock, but is also in the anthology. And I'm incredibly grateful to have it included. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio in public school, and then went to an all-girls Catholic school for high school. And Mary became sort of a talisman for me when I was there. Just a brief note, because if you're not seeing this poem on the page, there's a repetition of Mary, and toward the end of the poem, which is M-A-R-Y, M-A-R-R-Y, and M-E-R-R-Y. So this is Statue Prayer at 15. Mother, in my world, virginity is defined by loss. Admission, an easy litmus. As soon as I open to confession, their touches turn from want to sister. But here I am on my knees, still in this jaded light, your static mouth jeweled in the cut of votive flame. What if I believe this is my way, that for once I have found the diadem of no as a kind of salvation, at last a place where I am heard? What if I think of your face, smiling in yes, when I whisper in the thresh of desire? What if I pray to hold, wait for the one true found? I cannot bear their eager lips, their breath heavy at the chapel of want, the way they try their hands at the altar of my legs. I soften to their kisses, yes, the rare sweetness of their words when they are without motive. Someone has painted a heart on your hand. Someone has touched you with gold. I tip my forehead to your cracked hem, hardened in its line. My knees grow numb with leaning. I whisper up to you, "Oh Mary, oh Mary, oh Mary." Is it all a trinity of trickery, a prayer of persuasion, of false faith? And still, the problem of this star crossed over my body, forever this burden we call light.
Beautiful as always, Julie. I'm going to be reading a poem titled Satellite. And the title of the poem is actually a reference to a song called Sleeping Satellite by Tasman Archer, who inspired the poem. This is Satellite. Mary, where were you when the moon split in two? Were you on the outskirts of town, your back pressed to the holy ground, face up, confusing stars for comets, but still wishing? You heard salvation before you spoke it, the rumble roaring down, slicing the fronds. What a rush. Leaves you to tremble in the quake of your youth until your virginal mind becomes hot and wild, pure. They reach for you, yet you'd rather capture the lunar swirls, hold the shattered moon, tender satellite in your praying hands. Somewhere the tide is also broken and weeping. Listen. Joseph's been dreaming again. They want to kill your son. They want you to appear every time they need a miracle. You hear the constant desperation of faceless sinners, the haunting echo of their hungry howls calling. Thank you very much. And thank you to Collin and Karen for bringing us together as a community. It's a wonderful thing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Martelli. Thank you again, Collin and Karen. This has just been such a wonderful experience. And I love reading with Redheaded Stepchild, which is the best name for a journal ever, right? So my poem, the Madonna in the poem is Mary, but also Madonna from the 1984 MTV Music Awards. And this poem, which is sort of a mini Sonic Crown, will be in my forthcoming book. I'm just trying to pull it up. Sorry, there we go. Which is based in 1984, which I don't know who was around then or who was old enough, but just some really great clothes. So anyway, Madonna Triptych, 1984. 1. My heart beat boom, boom, boom when I stole things from my parents' room. Tortoiseshell cup, the rosaries I grabbed in my fist, some tarnished, one with a bone crucifix. On the bureau, the triptych mirror refracted light from the windows with ivory drapes and blinds. The stone Madonna wore my favorite strand, the pearl rosary moons on a tarnished chain. I held 5 decades of luminescent spit and mother of pearl to my breast, my lips, fingered each bead, all sweaty and tangled. My rib cage felt corseted, laced up and bridled. No one ever missed a single thing or heard me leave, I think. 2, even in my dreams, I fear no one will ever hear me. Last night, I tugged a steel knife from an old wound, diseased, the long, cool blade pulled easily from a cloudy sky, the sky at night refracting the pearl milk moon full and fat. On my pine bureau, the tortoiseshell cup holds the pearl and blonde wood beads. Dust clogs their chains. Dust sprinkles down like starlight through the open windows. And because this is my dream, the knife became a black and silver corded mic I held to my breast, my lips, the long cord wrapped around me, my ribs. 3, and because this is my dream, the mic belonged to Madonna, crawling in white across the dusty stage in tulle and lace, corseted a bride like a virgin, her necklaces, 3 strands of pearls, rhinestones for refraction, a fat rosary with globe decades tightened around her neck. The choker gleamed, echoed her silver boy toy belt. And still she was singing, ooh, you make me feel, ooh, yeah, you make me feel shiny and new. All laced up in whalebone or plastic stays, rib cage Madonna got down, girl cow low, dragged that crucifix across the wood. It loomed over the waxy shine, bounced to the bass beat boom. Thank you.
Wow, that was beautiful and tough to follow. I remember that. Actually, that brought back a lot of memories. Anyway, and it's fun, so I'm trying to mellow out here now after that fun one. This is called Mary's Confession, and I wrote it last year in the midst of the pandemic and in the midst of Trump. And both of those things have evolved since this poem was written, which is great. But this is kind of a interesting look back at that time. All right, it's called Mary's Confession. I have never been to Notre Dame. I was not there when the fire started. I will not be there when it is rebuilt. I was nowhere near the Vatican when Michelangelo carved my face or when a man smashed it with a hammer. But I have not abandoned you. If you need me, find me in the rustle of red leaves in gutters, the comforting musk of dung and hay, the startled come cries at night. The forests are my cathedrals, and they too are scarred by fire. When you see me weeping in portraits, my tears are for the poor and the meek, and for the injured earth they will inherit. Smoke rises over cities. Holy men prey upon boys. Children are thrown into cages. A madman rages on his throne with millions in his grip. They are struggling just to breathe, and there is nothing I can do. I fled my home to save my son, but I could not protect him. Nothing destroyed can ever be brought back. Okay, thank you.
Tyson, you are up next if you are still on the line here.
There I am. Am I here now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry, I couldn't unmute it right away. This poem, of course, is absolute total fantasy. I just made the whole thing up. Has no basis at all in any experience. Carpenter's wife. She was not a woman you noticed right away. Not like my dead Judith, whose loud laughter and footsteps still echo off the walls of our home when I close my eyes. Our house, our youngest daughter, now keeps with her own testament of order. Our food swims not so spicily cooked in the same limestone vessels, nor does my clothing lie folded as comfortably as it had been caressed in Judith's strong hands. Yet I dare not complain to Sarah, for if she left for some young man's arms and lies, no one would sweep my dust and clean my plates. I keep stitching broken sandals and crafting new with a jibe or a joke, for those who trade with me like Joseph and his wife Mary. The first few times she stopped, I could sense her skill with needles, her cloak and tunic well formed. I would later learn the intricacy of her stitching, admiring her work as she lay naked next to me. Of course, she was the one who teased me first, batting her eyes as she drew out my story in the banter of our trading. She too first touched my forearm. Unsure of the shade of her desire, I hesitated. Still, my starving for a woman's hand pulling me close made me drop to the magic of time's syrup, crystallizing into diamonds and now. Her son and husband had left to craft walls for the tanner's house, and she had seen my daughters leave for the marketplace. She swept into my shop on our first visitation, and at the look of those hard brown eyes, I put up the closed sign. Then she and I broke the silence of my chambers. In the distance, a donkey brayed, and the weaver's woman across the wadi yelled at her husband. My tongue hunted for the sweetness in the dark forest of a triangle, while she found a way to fold my manhood into her being. So we continued in stolen moments, never fearing the punishment of adulteress. Where she laughingly preached to me, it be a sin only if the points and size of our passion alter God's design. She would have made a wondrous wife, for she loved the same spices as I. She kept whispering of her son's destiny and hers when he left town at 30 to preach to strangers, annoying the Romans, who I confess have been far better governors than our Pharisees. It only takes a few coins to purchase their disinterest. I warned my loving milk of the dangers her son faced tugging on the priest's fine clothes. Then suddenly, as our intimacy flared, she abruptly rose to follow her son on a strange sojourn. I'm sure that Joseph and my daughter never suspected that when the moonlight cuts the desert air like a scimitar into my sleeping quarters where I lie alone, I miss my finger's last caress of Judith's soft inner thigh with as much sorrow as my loss of Mary's tight body and skillful hands. She never returned to me after the terrible end her son met at Jerusalem and the theft of his corpse a few days later.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Tyson. That was beautiful. I was so excited to hear that the cover photograph for the anthology was shot in Wemrick, one of my favorite places, and which is referenced here in my poem, Catholic Cemetery, Savannah. Even in October, it's tropical. Spanish mosses crepe over Celtic crosses and beat up Irish flags, their orange stripes gone pink from summer's UV. And there are Marys. Oh God, Mary after marble Mary, downcast Madonnas, Mother of God, no eye contact. The Mary over our aunt's grave, also comforting nearby rows of soldiers' headstones, rising the same 2 feet, the same rounded corners. A little Flanders field, I say. But no, my cousin who grew up here says, these are the parish nuns, fallen sisters, each with 2 carved names. So many Marys. Above the year she professed, the year she died, as though the decades between birth and Christ were but an anteroom, not yet true life. And now I'm having a Thomas Gray moment. I'm walking their ranks as he did in his elegy, assigning lives, perhaps lived, perhaps not. A conceit my cousin allows only because we don't see each other that much. This Mary, I say, came from that village near Limerick, where they burned Edna O'Brien's Country Girls. And Mary Catherine here never watched Saturday Night Live, but she crossed herself for days after hearing that Stepchild had ripped the Pope's picture. And didn't this Mary play a Pogues tape late at night? The sea shanty her mom used to sing. Look at her dates. She likely taught Mary Flannery O'Connor. I say they're buried so close, it's like they're holding hands, but my cousin frowns. Only an Atlanta Protestant, he says, could think such a thing. He has his own business. He's walking their rows, mumbling like Popeye, I know you're here, until, found you. Sister Mary Christiana, professed 1938, died 1980. She who brought rulers down on boyhood hands, foretold misery, swung girls by pigtails. And as we stand in the wobbling heat, I keep it to myself, how they're all listening down there as one of their own gets her ass chewed out. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupert, and thank you all. This is such a wonderful energy group and such great poetry. Thanks for being here and sharing this. This poem is called Black Madonna. All the dark mountains are her, and she sits within them, as if within a shawl of snow, of stone, Our Lady of the dark blood. Menstruating volcano, I get used to the heat of this molten flow. I get used to it like hot water scalding and let it burn me. Her companionship is a sweat lodge, and I let myself burn and soften like a squash. I'm a blackened potato, and pain is more about time, more about acceptance, which too is about time than suffering. Time is a crooked old man she drives away with stones. And I am more about night, more about confusion, more about blindness and surrender, more about black smoke and choking, more about a black hole than a star, and she's told me they are the same. And when I awake in the middle of the night, her body before me, the sacred mountain, I see the rage of her tenderness. The night sky is a charred forest fire of starlight, burning embers. O dark mother, you press wisdom into us like clay. We are the weakest kind of stone.
Hey everyone, Cleo Creech, thank you so much for everybody that pulled this together, and it's been really great to hear everybody's reading. In finding my background today, it was interesting how much has been written on this topic of celebrity candles and what it means in a society that is, where church, organized religion, and society is drifting apart so much, just who is left who behind. And that's kind of the center of this piece. Mary has left the building. I like those 7-day saint candles, cheap dollar ones from the grocery. First was Sacred Heart Jesus and sweet vanilla, then Virgin Mary as Our Lady of Guadalupe in a cloying floral scented red wax. Soon after, St. Jude with his pine freshness. But then in a little funky gift shop, I found Frida Kahlo and cinnamon spice. Soon after, I added Ruth Bader Ginsburg, patron saint of justice and general badassery. Anthony Bourdain, saint of cooking, I put in my kitchen window. Then I bought the patron saints of music, Jagger, Bowie, Prince, and Mercury. Friends brought over new ones saying, I thought of you when I saw this. I had to get a bigger display table. One faithful day, I noticed Mary had somehow left the building. Not the candle, but just the image of Mary on the candle. There were still the rays of celestial light, that holy backlighting where she should have been. The little chair beneath her still there, but looking confused. Mary had become an anti-apparition, conspicuous now in her absence. Did she not like all the competition? Did she not get along with Marilyn or Elvis? Did she not like being one of so many icons? Couldn't compete with all the Etsy shops? Had I not dusted her enough? Did I put her too far back in the pack? How does one deal with this? A missing Mary is a pretty lame miracle. How is persona non grata a call to faith? Will people line up not to see the Virgin, to worship at the spot that Mary used to be? This image will get no likes on Instagram amidst all the Rorschach test of burnt toast, wood grain, and rust stains. Do I fall to my knees in prayer, allow the Holy Spirit to wash over me, or do I take this personally, lash out at my abandonment? Girl, I never liked you anyway.
Hi, I'm Jill Crammond, and I'm a little Methodist girl who kind of had a message from Mary a few years ago, and she started speaking to me in the voices of all the suburban moms where I live in upstate New York. So this is Mary Pays Homage. The art of mothering isn't hard to master. So many children filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. So much depends upon a booster seat sitting on the roof of an SUV, while a wrong shoes for the weather mother searches for her keys and morning coffee. Sorry. When I say children, I mean gingerbread house, mean stepmother, mean artificial slate sidewalk artfully arranged, leading to a front door with a wreath, a witch inside making dinner. Lose your family every day, accept the fluster of slamming doors, the mealtime badly spent. Stand etherized before the crusted sink, your hair a half deserted streak behind you, while the children come and go, talking each one of the one that got away. After the second glass of wine, you will know what it is you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. After a fashion, the chickens will raise themselves, will have sense enough to come in out of the rain. Thanks.
So this poem, well, first of all, let me thank Collin and Karen for putting this splendid anthology together, and to Malika for hosting us tonight. It's so wonderful to hear all these incredibly different takes on Mary. This is called After a Stroke, My Mother Examines a Picture of the Icon of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Lady, why is your countenance the color of vole feet draggling from the jaws of a cat? What tribe of mud daubers stung stars onto your mantle? Who names the fumbles that topple from your breasts? Your counterspell blunts the jagged crescent of every campesino's charmed and smoldering scythe. Your spooled mouth waits to unfurl the ticker tape of your vow. In torchlight, your eyebrows fly to heaven on thin wings of soot. Only the moon survives the crush of your heel. Virgin of Guadalupe, I pray for your handshake. I pray for your ribs. I pray for your hips, the ones tugged dry while expelling that bountiful head, ordained to gnaw all the hangnails of history. Steer me, lady, through the lightning that browns the mountains. Drown the infections that flush my cough into a gargle. Virgin who never burned a supper, strip me of strangles, grizzles, knots, of scratched jazz skipping the shadows out of my sleep. Princess of the Aztecs, thread my poncho with roses this winter, that I might adorn that tomb slab where even Cayenne would cool, where your son's brain was looted of its chemical salves, and where his feet, which stretched the sea smooth as a conga head, refused to rest at right angles to the ground. Kiss me, mother of Mexico's hope. Your little mouth is still rusty with smoke.
That's great. Hi, I'm Tina Kelley. I am coming to you from Maplewood, New Jersey, and my poem was inspired in part by a assignment I had to do for the New York Times about the apparition of a picture of the Virgin in Passaic, New Jersey. It's called Pareidolia, or If It Makes Them Pray, That's Okay. And that's a quote from Reverend Father John Stratoff of Accra, Ghana, regarding the image of Christ's face found in the grotto. This is on page 65. Milk and Honey was in a bad place, about to cast herself into the sea, when something brushed her foot, driftwood, with the face of Jesus staring at me. Now her life is fine, and I wish upon whom every is to win this will have the same fortune I did. Starting bid, $15. It didn't sell. But other items have, of course. The $28,000 grilled cheese sandwich the offshore casino won at auction for publicity. The sandwich nibbled, Our Lady's face discovered, all of it wrapped in cotton, kept in plastic, and it never grew moldy. It brought the owner luck, frequent wins at the casino, not to mention fame and $28,000 on eBay. If I were Mother Teresa's image, I am not, I think I really would inhabit that Dorito. If I were Mary, I would peek out of the knots of the pine ceiling of Joey B's bedroom in Detroit. If I would etch myself in the stump of the hacked sumac in a crack in the overpass in Paterson, New Jersey, in the grayest, most Spanish-speaking neighborhood where the Superfund sites outnumber steeples almost. If I were the baby Jesus, I might skip the Pizza Hut billboard in Atlanta and that Frito, though there's an argument to make for the pierogi in Pittsburgh with all those homesick Belarusians. I'd get a kick out of the Cone Nebula, a fine place for watching eternity. The Chihuahua's ear in Tennessee was perfect swaddling. Mary gets extra credit for hiding in that sonogram of the 8-week, 4-day-old child. God bless the human brain for the hard wiring that sees the face everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you to all the contributors here. Just another amazing reading. And I think we've said this before, but Karen and I read more than 300 poems and whittled it down to this. And it was one of the toughest decisions. I've edited quite a few anthologies now, and this one was by far the hardest because the work was just fantastic. And as you can see, everything you heard tonight is just brilliant. Everything in the collection is brilliant. So it was an absolute pleasure to edit this. And so just a thrill. And to touch on, Karen had said this earlier, this is our 4th reading from the anthology. And we would, in any other given time, if it wasn't the pandemic, we would have had little readings in cities here and there. We would have never been able to get so many of the contributors together for each of these readings from all over the world. And so this has been really fantastic to have everyone come together and do these readings. And as I said, this is the last one for now. We're probably going to do another one in the fall when it gets to our 1-year anniversary of when the book was out. So stay tuned for that. Karen, do you have some final closing thoughts? We'll take some questions too, but Karen, do you have any thoughts?
I think you covered most of it. Again, we just want to thank Malika and everybody.
Really, yeah, just amazing, you guys. Wow. Thank y'all so very much. I love the range and so many voices, and I just want to thank everybody who showed up tonight. And Karen and Collin, I can't even imagine the task at hand, but what a reward to, gather these voices together, these poems. I mean, I was just spellbound. I could have listened all night.
Thank you, Malika.
Kind of wish everybody was here.
Thank you for hosting this again. We really appreciate it. And Julie for helping to facilitate it. I can't see her face anymore. I'm in my little row of faces now, but
I'm here.
Yeah, Julie. So to make this come together is just another fantastic night. So if someone's got a question, feel free to unmute and ask or type it over in the chat, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
What I love too is that you kind of answered the questions that I had, like the origin and then how the cover came about. I mean, fabulous job, Collin and Karen and everybody involved in like creating this experience for us. It kind of felt very immersive, to be honest. It was beautiful. So I didn't have an immediate question. I'm just grateful that you found somebody to publish it and it got off the ground.
And Madville has been fantastic. They've just been great to work with. Kim Davis. They've just been an absolute treat to work with.
They have lots of other really great books. So,
yes.
Definitely check out. It's a fairly new press, but they're really doing some marvelous books, including Janet Lowry, who's on here tonight, has a fabulous anthology all about honky tonks and and neon and other such things, which is Under the Light of the Neon Moon, which is fantastic as well.
And you can, if you don't already have the book, that's probably the best place is to go directly over to Madville and order it.
Or from your local independent bookstore, wherever that might be.
Perfect.
Yes. Support those local indie bookstores. We need to support them now more than ever.
That's what I should, yeah, exactly. Now more than ever. Does anybody have any questions? I've been looking at the chat and I don't think I've missed anything question-wise, but if I have, jump in. And if you have a specific poet that you wanted to ask the question of, everybody's just too happy. That's awesome.
I just want to say, after every poem, I just wanted to stop and talk with that poet for like, have a 15 minutes. No, not 15, but 3 or 4. I mean, every poem just like tripped open these doors. And then there was another one, right afterwards. So,
that's a perfect way to put it. It did open doors, and it really was wonderful to hear one voice after the next, the full range of it all. I was just amazed. It was amazing. So my sense is that we say thank you all for being here. It is my joy to have an opportunity to hear your splendid voices and to be part of that experience. And once again, congratulations, Collin and Karen, for creating this, and to all people that were involved in it. Fabulous poems. Thank you for showing up tonight and making our night so beautiful. Yeah, people are doing hearts. Yes. Good night. Be well. If somebody missed this, look for the video up on Facebook, and I will send the chat section because it was very active. And I want y'all to hear the compliments. So be well. Thank you.
Thank you, Malika. Good night.
My
Good night,
pleasure.
everybody.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.